Hello, welcome to Capital Sensei. Today, we're going to dive deep into one of the most influential personal finance books ever written, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. We'll unpack the core story of his two fathers, explore the fundamental difference between an asset and a liability, understand what the rat race is and how to escape it, and break down the key lessons on financial literacy that have changed the way millions of people think about money. Whenever we can, we try to answer questions left in the comments. So, if anything we discuss today sparks a question, or if you have your own story about trying to apply these principles, please share it below. Your experiences and doubts help everyone in this community learn and grow together. Let's begin with the central story that gives the book its name. Robert Kiyosaki presents his childhood as being shaped by two father figures with dramatically different mindsets about money and life. His own father, the poor dad, was a highly educated man, a PhD, who held a secure, high-paying government job. He believed in the traditional path: get good grades, go to a good college, and find a safe job with benefits. Despite his high income, he frequently struggled with financial problems. On the other hand, his rich dad was his best friend's father. This man never finished the 8th grade, but became one of the wealthiest men in Hawaii. He was an entrepreneur and an investor. His philosophy was the complete opposite of the poor dad's. He believed that formal education teaches you how to be a good employee, not how to be rich. He taught Robert and his friend that you shouldn't work for money. You should have money work for you. These two opposing views form the foundation for every lesson in the book. The core conflict between the two dads wasn't about who earned more money at their job. The poor dad had a substantial salary. The real difference was in their financial literacy. It was about how they thought about money, what they did with it once they earned it, and what they taught their children about it. One dad said, "The love of money is the root of all evil." The other said, "The lack of money is the root of all evil." This contrast sets the stage for a powerful reevaluation of everything most of us were taught about personal finance. The very first lesson Rich Dad teaches the boys is a profound one. The rich don't work for money. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds completely backward, right? How can you get rich if you don't work for money? This is where we get the first big mindset shift. The poor dad's strategy was to climb the corporate ladder, seek raises, and get a better salary. This is what most people do. It's working for money. You trade your time and your labor directly for a paycheck. Rich Dad's approach was different. He taught them to spend their lives building or acquiring assets that generate money for them, even when they aren't physically working. Think of it like this. Working for money is like carrying buckets of water from a river to your village. It's hard work, and if you stop carrying buckets, the water stops. Building assets, on the other hand, is like building a pipeline from the river to the village. It takes a lot of work up front, but once it's built, the water flows continuously, whether you are there or not. This leads us directly to the single most important concept in the entire book. The lesson that truly separates the rich from the middle class and the poor. And that is understanding the difference between an asset and a liability. This might sound like accounting jargon, but Kiyosaki's definition is brutally simple. An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket. A liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. That's it. It's that straightforward. So let's look at this with some real-world examples. An asset could be a rental property that generates monthly rent checks for you. It could be stocks that pay dividends. It could be a business you own that operates without your constant presence. Or it could be intellectual property like a book or a song that pays you royalties. All of these things feed you money. They are your financial pipelines. Liabilities, on the other hand, are the things that drain your finances. This includes your car payment, your credit card debt. subscriptions, and even things you might think are valuable. And here comes the most controversial point in the entire book. For most people, their primary residence, their own house, is a liability, not an asset. This idea shocks a lot of people because we're all taught that buying a home is the best investment you can ever make. Let's break down why Kiyosaki says this. When you own a house you live in, does it put money in your pocket every month? No. It does the exact opposite. You have a mortgage payment, property taxes, insurance, maintenance costs, utility bills, the list goes on. Money is constantly flowing out of your pocket because of that house. You might argue, but my house is appreciating in value. And that may be true. But that appreciation is unrealized. You can't spend it. The only way to get that money is to sell the house, and then you still need a place to live, which will also cost you money. An asset in Rich Dad's world generates cash flow. Cash flow is the river of money that comes from your assets. The rich focus their lives on acquiring income-generating assets. The poor and middle class, in contrast, acquire liabilities that they think are assets. They buy bigger houses, nicer cars, and more consumer goods, all on credit. Their expenses go up with their income. They get a raise, so they buy a more expensive car. This is the cycle Kiyosaki famously calls the rat race. Imagine a hamster on a wheel. It runs and runs faster and faster, but it never actually goes anywhere. It's stuck inside the cage, on the wheel. This is the life of most people financially. They wake up, go to work, pay bills. They get a promotion, make more money, and what happens? Their lifestyle inflates. They move to a bigger house, get a new car, and their bills increase right along with their income. They are running faster on the wheel, but they are still trapped. They are dependent on their next paycheck just to maintain their lifestyle. The way out of the rat race isn't to get a bigger paycheck. The way out is to start buying or building assets. The goal is to have the monthly income from your assets become greater than your monthly expenses. When your assets are generating enough passive income to cover all your living costs, you are financially free. You have escaped the rat race. At that point, you no longer have to work for a paycheck. You can choose to work because you want to, not because you have to. This brings us to Rich Dad's third lesson. Mind your own business. This doesn't mean you should be nosy. It means you need to focus on building your own asset column. Your profession is what you do to earn a paycheck. Your business is your asset column. Poor Dad was a teacher. That was his profession. But he had no business. He worked for the government's business. Rich Dad's profession was being an entrepreneur, and his business was his portfolio of real estate and other companies. So, for you, your profession might be being a nurse, a programmer, a truck driver, or a lawyer. That's how you pay the bills right now. But your business is what you do with your money after you get paid. It's the process of taking a portion of your income and using it to buy assets. You might still work your 9-to-5 job, but in your spare time, you are minding your business by researching stocks, looking for a small rental property, or starting a small online store. You are building your asset column brick by brick. Let's use an analogy. Think of your job as a big, powerful faucet. When you turn it on by going to work, a lot of water, your salary, comes out. The rat race is when you put a giant bucket under that faucet, and every drop that comes out goes into that bucket to be used up immediately for your lifestyle and bills. Minding your own business is about taking a smaller bucket and using it to fill a separate reservoir, your asset column. At first, the reservoir is small, but you keep adding to it. Eventually, that reservoir gets big enough and has its own little springs, your assets, that it starts producing its own water, independent of your main faucet. Now we get into a slightly more technical but absolutely critical lesson: the history of taxes and the power of corporations. This is where the rich really play a different game. Kiyosaki explains that, historically, taxes were levied on the rich to be redistributed. However, the rich are smart. They don't just sit there and let their money be taken. They use their financial knowledge to find legal ways to minimize their tax burden. The primary tool they use for this is the corporation. This might sound complicated, but let's simplify it. When you are an employee, the financial sequence is you earn money, you pay taxes on that money, and then you spend what's left. The government gets its cut first. But a corporation works differently. The sequence for a corporation is it earns money, it spends money on everything it can justify as a business expense, and then it pays taxes on whatever is left over. The order is completely flipped. Imagine two people both earning $100,000. The employee gets their $100,000 paycheck, and maybe $30,000 immediately goes to taxes. They are left with $70,000 to live on and pay for their car, their meals, their phone, and so on. The business owner, who has a corporation, also earns $100,000. But before paying taxes, the corporation pays for the business car, business trips, business meals, and the business phone. Let's say those expenses are $50,000. The corporation is then taxed only on the remaining $50,000 in profit, not the full $100,000. The tax bill is significantly lower. This is a simplified example, of course, but it illustrates the principle. The rich use corporations as a vehicle to protect their assets and reduce their taxes legally. It's not about tax evasion, which is illegal. It's about tax avoidance, which is using the law as it's written to your advantage. This is a level of financial education that poor dad, despite his PhD, never understood. He saw his high salary get eaten away by taxes, while rich dad built wealth protected inside his corporate structures. This leads to the fifth lesson: the rich invent money. This sounds almost magical, doesn't it? But it's not about alchemy or printing presses. It's about seeing opportunities that other people miss. It's about using your financial intelligence to create deals and investments out of thin air. The most valuable asset you have is your mind. When it's trained to recognize financial opportunities, you can create wealth. For example, most people think you need money to milk money. Rich Dad taught that the most skilled investors often use very little of their own money. Let's say there's a distressed property for sale for $80,000 that you know, with about $20,000 in repairs, could be worth $150,000. You don't have $100,000, but you find an investor who does. You create a partnership. They put up the money, you manage the project, and you both split the profits. You just invented a $50,000 profit without using your own cash. This is about seeing value where others see risk or junk. It's about knowing how to structure a deal, how to find financing, and how to bring the right people together. This skill, this financial creativity, is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. It requires you to step out of the passive consumer mindset and into an active creator mindset. Instead of just looking for a good deal on a television, you're looking for an underpriced asset you can improve and profit from. The final major lesson from Rich Dad is to work to learn, not to work for money. This is especially crucial for young people starting their careers. The conventional advice is to find a job that pays the most. Rich Dad's advice is to find a job where you can learn the most critical skills for becoming an investor and business owner. The most important skills, according to Kiyosaki, are sales and marketing. Why sales? Because if you can't sell, you can't build a business. You need to be able to sell your product. your service, your ideas to investors, and yourself to potential partners. Many people, especially highly educated professionals, look down on salespeople. But Rich Dad saw it as the #1 skill for success. If you're afraid of rejection or talking to people, a job in sales, even for a short time, can be the most valuable education you ever get. Beyond sales, you need to understand marketing, communication, negotiation, accounting, and leadership. The goal isn't to become a master of all of these, but to become competent. Your early jobs are your paid education. Don't just chase the highest salary. Chase the job that will teach you how to manage people, how to understand a financial statement, or how to market a product. That knowledge will become an asset that pays you back for the rest of your life, long after the bigger paycheck from a dead-end job would have been spent. So we have these powerful lessons, but Kiyosaki acknowledges that just knowing this stuff isn't enough. Many people read the book, get excited, and then do nothing. He identifies 5 main reasons why financially literate people may still not develop abundant asset columns. These are the mental roadblocks we all face. The first is fear, specifically the fear of losing money. No one likes to lose money. But the truth is, every successful investor has lost money at some point. Rich Dad had a different attitude towards failure. He would say, the difference between winners and losers is how they handle losing. Winners aren't afraid of losing. They know it's part of the process of learning. They see it as an opportunity to learn a lesson. The poor are so terrified of losing $1 that they never invest. And in doing so, they lose out on the much bigger potential gains. Think about learning to ride a bike. Did you just hop on and ride perfectly the first time? Of course not. You fell. You got scraped knees. But you got back on. Investing is the same. You might make a bad stock pick. You might buy a rental property that gives you headaches. These are your scraped knees. If you let the fear of falling stop you, you'll never learn to ride. The key is to start small, so that any losses are manageable and serve as inexpensive lessons. The second obstacle is cynicism. This is the voice of doubt, both from inside yourself and from the people around you. It's the "that'll never work" or "it's too risky" chorus. When you start talking about buying assets or starting a business, your friends and family, often with the best intentions, will tell you all the reasons it could fail. They are projecting their own fears onto you. You have to learn to shut out that noise and trust your own financial education and analysis. The third obstacle is laziness, and Kiyosaki has a specific definition of laziness. It's not just sitting on the couch. It's being too busy to take care of your wealth. People say, "I'm too busy at work to think about investing," or "I'm too tired after work to look for deals." Rich Dad believed that this kind of busyness is often a form of laziness. It's an excuse to avoid doing something that feels difficult or unfamiliar. The cure for this is a little bit of greed, a desire for a better life that motivates you to overcome the inertia. The fourth obstacle is bad habits. Our lives are a reflection of our habits. The poor dad had a habit of paying his bills first as soon as he got his paycheck. What was left, if anything, was for himself. Rich Dad taught Kiyosaki the habit of paying yourself first. This is a crucial distinction. It doesn't mean you don't pay your bills. It means that the very first bill you pay each month is the one to your asset column. Here's how it works. You decide you're going to invest $200 a month. The moment you get paid, before you pay rent, before you pay for groceries, you move that $200 into your investment account. What this does is create pressure. Now you have less money to pay the other bills. This pressure forces you to be more creative. It forces you to find ways to earn more money or cut other expenses rather than sacrificing your investment goal. It makes building your future a non-negotiable priority. The fifth and final obstacle is arrogance. Arrogance is ego plus ignorance. It's the person who doesn't know anything about a subject but pretends they do. When it comes to money, arrogance is incredibly expensive. If you don't know the difference between a good investment and a bad one, don't pretend you do. Your arrogance will cause you to lose money. Instead, be humble. Acknowledge what you don't know and seek out education or expert advice. If you're ignorant in a particular area of investing, first educate yourself, then invest. So how do you put all of this into action? Kiyosaki provides a kind of roadmap. The first step is to find a reason bigger than reality. Your why. Why do you want to be financially free? Is it to spend more time with your family? To travel the world? To support a cause you care about? This why needs to be strong because it's what will keep you going when you face fear, cynicism, and setbacks. You need a powerful emotional reason. Next, you must choose daily to be rich. This is a choice you make every single day with every dollar you control. When you get a dollar, you have the choice to be its master or its slave. You can spend it on a liability, which makes you poorer, or you can use it to buy an asset, which makes you richer. This choice happens constantly in the supermarket. When you're shopping online, when you're deciding whether to upgrade your phone, you are constantly choosing your financial future. Then, you need to educate yourself relentlessly. Read books, attend seminars, listen to podcasts, find mentors. Your financial intelligence is an asset, and you must invest in it. Master the basics of accounting so you can read a financial statement. Learn about different investment strategies, real estate, stocks, starting a business. The more you learn, the more opportunities you will see. Finally, you need to take action. All the knowledge in the world is useless without action. Start small. You don't need to buy a giant apartment complex as your first investment. Maybe it's buying your first share of an index fund for $100. Maybe it's setting up a separate savings account labeled Asset Fund and paying yourself first, even if it's just $25 a month. The key is to start, to build momentum, and to learn by doing. In essence, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is not a step-by-step guide on how to get rich quick. It's a fundamental shift in mindset. It's about changing your perspective from that of a consumer and employee to that of an owner and investor. It's about understanding that true wealth is not about how much money you make, but about how much money you keep and how hard that money works for you. It's a call to take control of your financial education and build a life of freedom, not a life of running endlessly on a hamster wheel. The principles are simple, but applying them requires discipline, courage, and a lifelong commitment to learning.